Well, I'm man enough to admit when I made a mistake. Hey guys, the Black Critic Guy here as promised with my long-awaited re-review of the anime My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu, or Oregaru. So My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu follows the daily high school life of one Hachiman Hikigaya, a pessimistic loner who is forced by his teacher to join the volunteer club and assist them in solving people's problems, as well as exploring his relationship with various people, including Yukino Yukinoshita and Yui Gahama. Now, I originally reviewed this anime 2 years ago, and much like Bakemonogatari, I didn't have the nicest things to say about the series. This anime is really boring and forgettable. I'm sorry to all the fans out there of this anime, but I just really didn't like this anime. I didn't give two shits about any of the situations, any of the main characters, any of the side characters, nothing. The mundane situations are just mundane. They're not really exciting or really interesting or engaging. They're just, This anime was perfectly named. I mean, My Youth Romantic Comedy is wrong, as I expected, is a perfect name for this anime, because if you were to go into this anime thinking that there was gonna be some type of romantic comedy elements, you'd be wrong. Yeah, you have a few here and there, but most of the anime is melodramatic. That is the truth. He is so unlikable to the point where it prevented me from really caring about him, and his character really doesn't give a shit throughout this entire anime. He just stays a loner. He doesn't want to build bonds or connections. He doesn't like to help people out, at least in a direct way. And if our main character doesn't give a shit, then why should the audience? Why should I care about the situations that he gets into and the relationships that he's building when he himself does not care about any of those things? But not only him, I didn't like Yukino or her story. I sorta like Yue from time to time, and the other side characters besides the three that I mentioned are all one-dimensional, bland, generic, and downright forgettable. I just really didn't give a shit about anything in this anime. From the characters to the situation to the story, they're all bland, generic, mundane, and downright forgettable. And that's why I'm going to give this anime a 2 out of 5 stars. It is an easily forgettable anime. And after I'm done with this review, I will not remember this anime at all. What is this anime's name again? Now granted, those were just my thoughts for season 1 of the anime, and after rewatching season 1 and watching season 2, I can wholeheartedly say that the anime isn't as bad as I remembered it being. In fact, it has a lot of great merits to it. First up to bat, as always, is the animation, which is solid in both seasons. It was colorful, had great character designs, gorgeous backgrounds, especially in season 2. The backgrounds in season 2 were far better than the ones in season 1. They were just more lively and vivid. And funny enough, I discovered that seasons 1 and 2 were actually animated by 2 different studios. Season 1 was animated by Brainspace, the same people behind Defrag, One Week Friends, and the Kawaii Complex. And season 2 was actually animated by a studio called Feel, with the period at the end, who animated, get this, Kiss X Sis and Yosuga no Sora. Yup. 2 of the most infamous incest animes. I was completely shocked by that. But they've animated other things as well, like Minami-ke and other animes, but those 2 just stuck out the most to me. I'm like, 2 incest animes. 2! But regardless of what the subject matter of the anime they're working on actually is, they still provide great animation as clearly shown in all the animes I just listed, and also in My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu 2. And the Japanese voice cast did extremely well with their performances. They brought a lot of emotion and did a good job at bringing their characters to life. I especially like the guy who voiced Hachiman. I think he did the best in the entire series. I mean, a lot of you might feel like he comes off as pretty dull and stoic in his voice work, but you gotta understand that there's a lot of restraint that he put in his performance, but also showed a lot of emotions through his voice work alone. It just really well done voice acting. And yeah, there is no English dub for this anime yet. Sorry dub fans, maybe one day. And just like the anime Erased, which I reviewed a few days ago, the two vocal points of this anime are the story and its characters. Now the story, or should I say stories in this anime, are quite peculiar, but also really fascinating to say the least, as each season in this anime tells a different story, has different themes, and critiques vastly different things. Like the story presented in the first season is a clear critique on the romance genre of anime. It's an anti-romance as it mocks many romance tropes, like the likable protagonist who's very oblivious about other people's feelings about him having a harem of girls, his relationships with various people, him being the center of attention in almost every single story, his approaches to solving problems, the setups to many episodes, and even his first love interest. Like, Hachiman is not a likable character when you first see him, and he does not have a harem of girls. Hell, he's not even the main focus of many of these stories. Other characters take center stage, and he's kind of like the background character that adds to the moment. His relationship with people is strained, to say the least. He doesn't really have positive relationships with other people, unlike most protagonists in romantic comedies or romance animes. His approaches to solving problems in the anime are very mean-spirited, and although they are effective, they do a lot of damage, not only to other characters, but also to himself as he vilifies himself in the eyes of other people. And finally, when the character finally expresses feelings for another character, it's not for like a certain girl in his class, it's actually for a Bishonen character that he sees in one episode, and he's just like, wow, that is a really cute person. And I thought that was kind of like a clever twist on the whole, like, the main character falls in love with like the cutest girl. Instead, the main character of this series falls in love with like the cutest guy. I thought that was pretty funny and clever. And in looking closely to the story of season 1, I can see where and how I missed the point in my past review. When I was going into my teen romantic comedy snafu 2 years ago, I went in with the mindset that this was going to be a romantic comedy. It was promoted as such, so that's what I was expecting. I didn't expect it to be this whole anti-romance that is a bit of a drama as well, and it just was so jarring for me to see, and I had a knee-jerk reaction to it. But now that I know what it was trying to do, I have more respect for the story, and I think that it is very unique and very refreshing, especially to have a main character that's very realistic and pessimistic. You don't really see that a lot in animes, and it makes for such an interesting point of view in a romance anime. But the story that's presented in season 2 is very different from the story of season 1. Whereas the first season was a critique on the romance genre as a whole, the second season is a critique on the show itself. It acts as a response to the first season. The first half of season 2 heavily criticizes Hachiman's method of solving problems. In fact, putting him on blast by other members of the volunteer club, saying that they don't like his method of solving problems. That's not the method that they like doing, and he should not do that anymore. And also that isolationism isn't the right path to take. Sometimes you need outside help. You need people that you can rely on. The second season also delves more into the characters, analyzing their motivations, their behaviors, their relationship with others, and what they want out of life, with a huge central focus on the theme of change. It's so bizarre yet incredibly awesome to see a story evolve from season to season. I mean, most shows, they just stick with the same central themes and they do the same thing that they did in the first season. But with my teen romantic comedy snafu, the second season evolves from what the first season was like. And that actually makes the second season worth watching. Although later on in the second season, things start to take a turn for the worse. And we'll go into that a little bit more later. And finally, the characters, most of which were dynamic and fully realized, especially our three main characters, Hachiman, Yukino, and Yui. Starting off with Hachiman, this character really grew on me, guys. I mean, at first when I saw the character, I just really didn't like him. I didn't like his appearance. I didn't like his personality. I thought he was kind of an arrogant asshole and he thought he was above it all, like he was better than everybody else. But I slowly started to realize that that was the point of the character. He's supposed to come off as arrogant. He's supposed to come off as pessimistic and very harsh and realistic. That is the point of his character. But at the same time, I slowly began to realize how multi-layered this character was. He wasn't just a pessimistic realist. There actually is more to the character. Like the fact that he vilifies himself in the eyes of many people. And you would think that he does this for some like self-gratification just to be right, but no. He vilifies himself to unify others, to help others, but also in a very subtle way to protect himself. But of course, by season 2, the character does evolve from being that standoffish, loner type character to actually starting to rely on other people and trust in other people. And again, I love seeing growth like that in an anime, when you see characters progress. And I really dug the well fleshed out bonds and relationships he establishes throughout the series. Like his relationship with his sister, which is very playful. I love their banter, and they just have a really strong relationship, a good brother-sister relationship. His relationship with his teacher, some funny banter there. His relationship with the other members of the volunteer club, Yui and Yukino. His relationship with Hayama, who is his total opposite, and we'll go more into his character later on. His relationship with other characters. I mean, it's just really good. To sum it all up, Hachiman is not a bad character. In fact, he's an excellent character, and I take back the dishonorable mention I gave him in my top 10 most hated male anime characters. He does not deserve to be on that list. You guys were totally right. He's a much better character than any of those fuckers on that list. Yui and Yukino were also great as characters. They also go through a lot of development, but between the two characters, I feel like Yui is the only one that doesn't fully changed from season 1 to season 2. I feel like she's still the same character, whereas Yukino goes through a lot of changes from season 1 to season 2. Were they good? Meet me later. There's also a bunch of great and well-developed supporting characters in the series. The most fascinating one out of all of them, though, was Hayama Hayato, who is without question the antithesis to our main character, Hachiman. Whereas Hachiman is cold, pessimistic, and distant, Hayama is warm, positive, and always willing to help. At least in the first season. Like, when I see the character of Hayama, he just comes off as the ideal character for a romance anime. And I think that's why he got so much focus, as there's a lot of clash between him and Hachiman. And I just love seeing them clash with their ideologies and personalities. It actually made for some riveting moments in the series. Also seeing them kind of clash with how they feel for one another. Like, one of them is actually jealous of the other. I won't say which one is which, but it actually is pretty interesting and adds to the conflict between the two characters. Now, though my opinions on this anime has drastically changed from negative to positive, I still found some issues with it, particularly in its second season, which I know is pretty surprising to hear since I've been speaking very positively about the second season, but I will go into more detail as to why I found more problems with the second season than in the first. I did find some problems with the first season. Like, there's this one character that shows up in the middle of the anime and she has a whole episode dedicated to her that was completely pointless and doesn't add anything to the series. Like, I didn't know why they gave the character any focus, as 1, the character wasn't that interesting, 2, the story wasn't all that interesting, and 3, again, it just doesn't add up to anything. Like, it's just an isolated story that goes nowhere. Why even put it in? There's some story issues I have with the first season, like some stories not getting full resolutions or being left hanging, or just some things just didn't add up to me. Like, there's this one story dealing with Yukino's mother that does get addressed in the second season, but in the first season, it's kind of brought up and then never brought up again, which I thought was kind of weird. You don't just bring up something that is as big as Yukino's mother, and especially since the characters made it seem like a big deal and then do nothing with it. Yes, again, they address it in the second season, but that also is a problem, which I'll get into right now. The biggest problem with season 2 is that although they did very well at critiquing the first season, delving into the characters and exploring the theme of change, in doing so, the second season fell victim to the very tropes that the first season was criticizing. Like, the second season is basically your typical romance anime. Like having the typical oblivious and indecisive male lead, a harem in the anime, overly dramatic moments, and worst of all, a melodramatic love triangle. And you all know my feelings about love triangles that are taken way too seriously and aren't handled in a comedic fashion. Spoiler alert, I hate them. Not only that, but many of the characters in season 2 pull 180s, devolving into characters that they would never be. Starting off with Hachiman, Hachiman was a character that was very self-aware, very intuitive, and decisive, willing to make the hard choices even if it means destroying relationships in the process and vilifying himself. In the second season, he pulls a whole 180 and devolves into the typical oblivious and indecisive male lead in a romance anime. That is not what Hachiman's character was like. He would make the tough calls, and to see him kind of avoid making those tough decisions here in the second season was so jarring and disappointing to see. And I know what many of you are probably saying right now. Excuse me, Tony, aren't you being a bit hypocritical right now? Didn't you just praise the second season for critiquing the methods Hachiman uses to solve his issues? And you're right, I did praise the second season for doing that, but I didn't expect them to devolve his methods. I expected them to evolve them, bring it to another level where he can meet halfway with some of his methods and other people's methods. In this one, he completely caves into other people's methods and completely abandons his own. And I don't believe a character should abandon what they stand for just so that they can just please others and to fall into the status quo. Hachiman is not a status quo type character. Another character that devolves from her original character is Yukino. Yukino was kind of a very distant character in the first season, but by the end she started to open up to others. And in this season, she kind of seems very emotional, and that just didn't seem like the character to me. It was very jarring to see because the character never acted on emotion. She always acted on being meticulous and being smart and planning things. She was very strategic, similar to Hachiman. They both were never emotional characters, and all of a sudden they become emotional. Now, you can make the argument that, you know, when a character evolves, sometimes their personalities will change, and I could definitely see that. But to see a drastic change like that all of a sudden was kind of weird, because at the end of the first season, there wasn't a lot of change to her personality. I mean, there is some change and she is open, but not like completely open to the point where her personality turns into like the very stern and calculating type character to a doe-eyed, emotional, cutesy girl character. It just doesn't seem to fit the character that she was established to be. It goes against it. And the last character to pull a 180 is Hayama. Now, I'm very mixed when it comes to this change. On one end, I actually really like it as it makes the character far more interesting than he was in the first season and makes him a much more three-dimensional character, not just the ideal, positive, happy guy that helps everybody out. No, he's actually damaged. He has issues. There's problems with him, and he has resentment towards some characters. That makes for a very interesting and conflicted character. But at the same time, it also betrays the type of character that he was established to be, and he no longer becomes the antithesis to Hachiman. He begins to mirror Hachiman, and that was really jarring, as one of the main vocal points of the series was that Hachiman needed to have a total opposite, and Hayama was his total opposite, and all of a sudden he starts kind of relating to Hachiman and, you know, kind of connecting with them, which isn't bad. It's nice to see them kind of grow a bond. Again, showing my mixed emotions about this. I just don't know how to feel. I don't like that they're betraying the character he was established to be, but at the same time, I do find his changes very interesting. I just don't know how to feel about it. I'm just right there in the middle, guys. Right there in the middle. And okay, I gotta address this. The melodramatic love triangle. Now, I'm pretty sure you know who is in the love triangle, but just in case if you don't, I'll keep it as vague as possible. There's a love triangle in this anime, and the way that they execute it is in the worst way possible. It's overly dramatic, very repetitive, and just really dull and adds nothing to the characters. In fact, it just adds more meaningless drama. Some of the side characters that had huge presence in the first season were just completely pushed to the wayside in the second. Like Hachiman's best friend who suffers from 8th grade syndrome, like you rarely saw him in the second season, which was very disappointing because it would have been interesting to see maybe the character grows a little bit more, maybe he no longer has those types of fantasies. It would have been very interesting to see, but you don't really see him that much. And whenever you do see him, it's very, very short. It disappointed me. You don't really get to see much of Hideyoshi 2.0 either. The character pops up now and again, but that's about it. There were many story elements brought up in the second season that were left unresolved by the show's end, leaving you completely unsatisfied. A few of them were Yukino's strained relationship with her mother. Now, it's sort of addressed in the first season, and you get a glimpse of it here in the second season, but other than that, you don't really get to know more about why she has this strained relationship with her mother. I mean, you don't know why she doesn't like her. I mean, the mother character seems like a nice enough character. She didn't seem mean. She seemed like she deeply cared about her kids, so I didn't understand why she didn't have a good relationship with her mother or even with any of her relatives. Another one is that Hayama tells us that he actually likes somebody in the school, and we kind of get some hints as to who it is. I know who it is, but it would have been nice to explore more of that and get some resolution, maybe even have him talk to the character that he likes, but no, it just never happens. And the last issue with the second season of My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu was its ending. It ends on a cliffhanger, leaving you completely disappointed. I mean, it ends to where the three characters are having a conversation about the fate of their club, and then it just ends, like with no real answer or no real conclusion as to what lies next for them. It just ends like that. I'm like, really? That's how you're going to end it? They didn't even end it to where it's clearly defined as to what they want to do. It really isn't. It's left completely vague. And that was just upsetting. So overall, My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu wasn't as bad as I originally thought. It actually has a lot of great elements to it. But my grade for the series as a whole is sort of mixed because I really like the first season. I thought it was great, it was unique, it was refreshing, I liked the direction it took. But the second season, although it had a lot of great ideas and the first half was well done, it just slowly started to crumble in on itself and have so many issues that it bogged it down. So I'm going to give it 2 grades. The first season, I'm going to give a 4 out of 5 stars. I think that it definitely is worth watching. But the second season, I'm going to give that a 3 out of 5 stars. It's okay, you know, you don't have to watch the second season. The first season, though, definitely check out. It is definitely worth watching. It's great. But as always, I'm not the end-all, be-all opinion when it comes to this anime. I would love to know what you guys thought about it as well. Did you absolutely adore it? Did you think it's one of the best animes ever made? Did you find it really boring, dull, you couldn't relate to any of the characters, so you just didn't give a damn? And let me know, which one did you prefer best? The first season or the second season? Comment below, let me know, and stay tuned. I got some more anime reviews coming your way, especially my Cowboy Bebop review coming out on my birthday, April 8th, this Friday. And also I got some movie reviews coming your way as well. And that's all I got to say, I guess. And until then, guys, if you'd like to see more videos on this channel, be a part of the Black Critter Crew, please hit that subscribe button below. Like this video if you really enjoyed it. Sorry that it was really long. I had a lot to say. But anyway, I'm Tony Wall II, the Black Critter Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube.